Satria zao ty olo laha mandeha anjiaka egny, la tsy elaela avao laha mandeha maray midi favy la mameno laka. Zahay mihaka rao, ty laka kelekele tsy andresy fa laka bevata satria ty raha taloha ambonisy regny. La mahazo ia hazo antsio anakasio regny. Satria nzamanaky zao vezo pihaky io zao. No zao tsy manday avao raha ty refa lany kanefa tsy haiko ty fihenay raha zao iegny. Vo zao nilzy naniky raha io iaby nanike nanao tamberina ndraiky sy raha io zao do tena fa haiko iaby hoe kana mihena mare zao ty raha anjiaka egny.
Zahay taloha nampiasa kahie. Le olana amizay somary sarosarotra avao ty fampiasagna an'izay kahie zay satria tegna raiky avao manao an'izay asa zay. De en plus izay amizay koa somary nisy olana kelikely satria le raha lae baka amy vokatsy lae baka amy mpianjiake seriky rozy fa ohatsy hoe toa atao ino avao asa naniky toa reheo ala aro amy ay nefa tsy hita ay ty marinamy tsy hay marina ty tena diky raha angala aro any raha toy.
Amizao koa raha reo iaby koa zao mahapasiaka anjozy io tsy nisy fagnampoliana totanisa amy mpianjiake tsy misy mipoly amin-jozy. Ty anto raha amizay zao lafa zahay ro mandefa kahie regny magnaminjozy agny. La ty avie tsy mipoly amy atoy ty valy asa regny ka fara meloko mpianjiaka reo to ty anjozy.
Niova telefony zahay. Telefony avolenta. De io telefony io amizay hita ay fa magnamora ty asa ay. De taloha zahay nampiasa raha vokatsy horitegna avao ty nala taloha fa amizao zahay kila vokatsy aby baka anjiaka egny ala ay amizao. En plus izay amizay koa I vokatsy nampasiaka ny mpianjiake ny takenjozy regny fa hazonjozy amizao isaky 3 vola zahay mampimpoly azy amy mpianjiaky reo. De magnaraka an'izay zahay mbo zahay avao koa tsy manaky ny kahie teo taloha nalefa agnabako tsy tapopoky igny fa zahay avao ro mandefa ny données regny lafa agnaty telefony ao de zahay avao ro mandefa azy de mampiasa connexion de moramora fimpoly raha regny baka amizay de ampoly amy ty fokon'olo anaova itatsy.
Mamory mpianjiaka reo zahay avory ay agnambara ay fimpolia vokatsin-jozy regny. Lanjay ty vokatsin-jozy regny fomba fiasan-jozy iabiaby zay raha niazon-jozy regny amizay ro ambaran-jozy sady amantaran-jozy ty velomam-po ty raha anjiaka egny na mbo maro na fa kely. Agnotonay amizay koa rozy hoe ino mba ty sosokevitsy areo nareo mpianjiaky io.
Ty fokon'olo sasa nanosokevitsy hoe magnino lera tsika laha manao reserva. De ty sasy koa mivola hoe magnino le tsika laha mamboly hongo. Ty sasy koa mivola hoe magnino le tsika laha manao miasa lavakorita zao koa. De ty sasy amizay koa manivola hoe anjay reto resaky fagnanova harata jaoto reto abany ka manimba vatohara. Ka tamireo sosokevitsinareo sofokon'olo amizay de fa nisy nitanterahy. Ananao zahay teo reserva tsy maharitsy. Resaky harata jaoto regny amizao fa hoatsany fa tsy de hita. Manaka an'izay koa resaky ino tike reserva Oriagna zay aby ty raha nitanterahy eto amizay. Resaky fambolea zanakonko.
Zahay amizao zao la zahay ro la taratara zahay baka antanagny la kahie mpianjiaka reo hoe ty enta anjao areo.
Welcome and thank you for joining us today for the second of our webinars as we explore Blue Venture's strategy and approach. I'm Steve Box, the Chief Program Officer, and today our deep dive is on community data systems. Joining me today are Courtney, the Chief Technical Officer, and 3 of our team from around the world who are bringing this vision to reality, supporting partners and communities to unlock the power of data and its true potential. Joining us from Cabo Verde is Ayrton, from Madagascar is Nestin, and from Kenya is Fatma. And our joint aim today is to bring context and examples for how the data systems are being used by communities to manage their coastal resources and monitor progress towards the goal of locally managed marine areas, and how we can measure the impact in delivering both fisheries recovery and habitat protection, as well as anchoring those benefits into the food and income security of their communities. So for the agenda, you'll hear from Courtney to provide a synthesis of our approach. You'll hear from Ayrton talking about ecological monitoring and spatial data. Nestin will talk about fisheries production and data feedback. And Fatma will talk about the social economic survey and specifically the new information being generated around food security and nutrition. Now, while this talk is about data, we're not going to go deep on the technical ins and outs of the platform. And instead, we want to focus on the applications of these data with some specific case studies from around the world. And like last time, if you joined our previous webinar, we plan to leave plenty of time for questions. So please do add questions or comments to the chat box. Now, you can do this at any time as things come up or come to mind during the presentation, and we will collate them and try and answer them all at the end. And so with that as a brief intro, over to you, Courtney.
Thank you, Steve, and hi everyone. I'm Courtney Cox, Chief Technical Officer at Blue Ventures. It's wonderful to see so many of you joining today's webinar, where we'll be hearing from our teams across the globe about the role of our data in our work. If you joined our last webinar, you'll remember that our strategy is built around unblocking 4 systemic barriers: funding, data, knowledge, and advocacy. While today's focus is on the data lever, it's important to recognize that this is just one part of a broader integrated approach. Together, these levers empower communities to become powerful agents of change, driving effective management and protection across the coastal seas. It is our strong belief that data is fundamental to effective decision-making. You can't manage what you don't measure, but it's much broader than that. It's much broader than just trying to underpin management decision-making and measuring change. When communities are empowered to collect fisheries data, monitor habitat conditions, and understand their well-being, it creates expanding circles of awareness and agency. Gathering and using information isn't just a technical exercise. It's a transformative process that puts communities at the heart of the solutions. Access to data helps make communities' concerns visible and actionable. It supports communities in identifying priorities, structuring choices, and explaining the decisions they want to make. It also offers a clear way to measure progress on their own terms. Ultimately, data brings power, deepening understanding not only of local ecosystems and economies, but also of rights, responsibilities, and opportunities for influence. It's a key enabler, catalyzing, expanding, and sustaining community-driven efforts to achieve lasting change for both people and the environment. Many of you are familiar with our fisheries data platform and our commitment to supporting communities to collect and use their own fisheries production data at an unprecedented scale. But this is really just one part of a broader approach. We've been working over the past months tirelessly. We've been applying the same principles to develop an integrated suite of community-focused data solutions. Because small-scale fisheries is at the intersection of both biodiversity and people. Our data systems span the full spectrum of fisheries, covering production, value, and nutrition, coastal habitats, including reefs, mangroves, and seagrass, and communities capturing the perceptions of income and food security, environmental conditions, and engagement in management. The data sets associated in driving these systems are interconnected, grounded in place and centered on each community's unique journey towards establishing legal and functionally locally managed marine areas. Each platform is designed with the same goal: to get meaningful information into the hands of communities as simply and quickly as possible. By removing bottlenecks in data collection, analysis, interpretation, we enable communities to focus less on generating the data and more on using it to drive action. So we focus on building systems that make data collection as simple and accessible as possible. Simple being the key term. Each platform has been developed to streamline data entry by leveraging mobile technology and user-friendly interfaces, reducing training time and increasing adoption by community members. We've designed multiple input platforms, all free to use, that connect directly to cloud-based databases. These systems automate data cleaning, enable near real-time data analysis and visualization, making it easier for communities to access and interpret their data quickly and effectively. Each system is built around a shared dashboard design, available in all the working languages used across BV-supported countries. And it's important to note that while the platform is shared, the data is not. Each community retains full ownership of its information. The platform is specifically designed to protect personal identifiable information and adheres to practices and national standards for data security and access. Data remains accessible to the communities that generate it and is only shared externally with free, prior, and informed consent, evaluated on a case-by-case basis and tied to clearly defined use cases. Our primary aim is to ensure that local information drives local action. As communities grow more confident in using their data, they often begin to see its potential for coordination across coastlines and at broader scales, supporting those nested layers of governance and management required for effective stewardship. But we see this as a natural evolution, not an imposed outcome. The decision to scale, share, or aggregate data is one that must remain firmly in the hands of the communities themselves. Now I'm really excited to hand over to Ayrton, who will take us into the field to explore how communities are transforming local knowledge and scientific data into meaningful action for their coastal habitats. Over to you, Ayrton. I think we're having a sound challenge with Ayrton.
Hi everyone, I am Ayrton. I am part of Blue Venture West African team. It's a pleasure to be here today. I am a biologist and I joined Blue Venture because I really want to contribute to the development of my community and Cape Verde in general. Now we say Cape Verde is 99% sea territory. That's why fisheries is really important for us. While I am based on Cape Verde, our approach to this issue, I would say, is global. So today I am going to be talking about some examples from other regions, specifically some inspiring work from our colleagues from Madagascar. The best stewards of the coastal ecosystems are the habitats, are the community who depends on them. That's why on Blue Venture, we invest in supporting community to lead the ecological monitoring efforts. Our approach is to build the capacity of the members of the community to collect data on the health of their ecological ecosystem using participatory monitoring tools, inputting data through smartphones or tablets, and then use this data to discuss the results through data feedback sessions and community management meetings. Our goal is to take the mystery out of science and to build these practical skills in a simple monitoring method. We are transforming the monitoring from something done in behalf of the community into something done by them. Our focus is on 3 coastal habitats: the coral reefs, the seagrass, and the mangroves. I would say those ecosystems, they are the lifeblood of the coastal fisheries because they offer the nursery grounds, the storm protection, and they are very critical for the food security. Also, we are developing and adapting the methodology for communities to collect the data on each one. For example, to train the community to measure the mangrove tree density and to use some quadrants to assess the seagrass and conducting some manta tours to evaluate the coral reef health. We also combine all this information with other data sources, including high-resolution satellite imageries and habitat maps, and other surveys that might be publicly available. And then we combine this in an easy way and we bring to the community on an easy way they can understand through maps, image, infographics, or other information to them to discuss in their community meeting. I would love to have time to talk about each one of our methods, but today I will just talk about one case from the community in Madagascar relates to the mangroves. Mangroves in Madagascar, like everywhere else, they have been under intense pressures, cut for timber, charcoal, and for land conversion. Research papers show from the 19th to 2010, 20% of the mangroves in the region has been lost. And through Blue Venture, we support the management rights for the mangroves around 16 villages in Madagascar, were transformed to the community in 2016. Work on this with this community is really important because both to burn the local pressure and also to recuperate the mangroves areas and to build the local protection and the management capacity. The mangroves has been gradually recovered in the last years. First, the decline stopped, and now we see a coverage that is increasing again. That is really good news. And how we know all that? We know that because of the combining of methods. For example, we use the participatory mapping to identify areas that were degraded before and focus on the community attention. Also, on Blue Venture, we develop a free Google Earth Engine mangroves mapping tool that we call GEM that creates high-resolution land use change imagery and to track these areas over the time. We bring this complex remote sensing tool in an app, Android app, that is really simple and the community can use the app to monitor the mangroves. And all this data now is connected to our special data platform that also we add other special layers, for example, local managed marine areas that include the mangroves. And we connect with the rule and the regulation of the community and other governance regulation put in place. But in a simple way, what's really inspired us is because the community we see and they see the change. And using simple data like this, for example, generated by drone image, I think the image already talked by itself. You can see how a restoration area improved over the time. For example, in the first year, we have almost 600 trees per hectare, but after 2 years, is increased for almost 2,000 trees per hectare. So what is really important about our model is that we put the community in control. It's not just about their research, but the information that we give them to manage them. So I would say the ecological monitoring become a tool of empower. The community, they collect the data, they generate their own evidence, they advocate for their rights, and they are co-developing the regulation with the local authority. And it's just not about restoring ecosystem. It just is shifting power and responsibility. And I would say the wider community is noting that. Their testimony is also very powerful. For example, for me personal, the ecologic monitoring is one of my favorite work on Blue Venture because it goes beyond to collect data. It's connect you with the community. During the mangrove restoration, you can see the community are very motivated. They will sing, they will dance during all the hard work. You see they are happy. Before, I thought that was as motivating the community, but when you work with them, you see it's the community that are motivating us to do all this work. And they see the change. For example, in the last years, the fish they are reporting, they are seeing some species they haven't catch in the depths, like for example, the shrimps. And all these fish data is showing that mangroves depend on fish, for example, like the mud crab, are beginning to recover. And to tell you more about the fisheries data, I will pass you over to my colleague, Nestin. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ayrton. Hi, everyone. Just a quick check. If you hear me clearly, just nod silently at your screen. Yes, great. Okay. Yeah, good start. Okay, for those who don't know me, my name is Nestin, and I'm based in Tulia in Madagascar, and I've been at Blue Ventures for 3 years now. I'm a data scientist who's passionate about marine ecosystems, and it's really pleasure to talk with you all today about how data feedback from the fisheries data system works. Until recently, fisheries data across many coastal regions was patchy, incomplete, and simply never recorded. Here in Madagascar, even with Blue Ventures, it was challenging to recover fisheries catches using paper-based system with enormous bottlenecks in trying to collect, digitize, and analyze, and then share the information. This lack of actionable information made it slow for communities to develop plans and implement activities and see the results for their efforts. We've helped change that. We've been working to support communities to adopt simple digital tools to track landings using mobile phones and apps like Kobo Collect. Landing records not the species, the size, weight, the price, even though the length. And that data is automatically fed into a dashboard to help visualize and the status and trends in their fisheries. It's simple but transformative, and now we can focus on talking about the data with communities, and they use it as entry point for how the fisheries are performing and what needs to be changed. And it's not just Madagascar going through this digital transformation. Globally, this system has now logged over 1 million fisheries records, capturing local knowledge and trends in coastal fisheries from Southeast Asia, the Western Indian Ocean, West Africa, and Central America, and even Indonesia. Each record represents more than just a fish caught. It's part of growing body of community-owned evidence, showing how fisheries are changing, how seasons and market influence livelihoods, and what the actions of community can do, the effect of measurable change. But its strength lies in its local relevance and daily use, not just in numbers, but in how it's used to spark collective action. Now in Madagascar, we have discussion groups for data feedback. This is not just with FISER, but with all stakeholders involved, with the LMMI Council, local leaders, and the wider community. We talk about the result of last quarter to spark conversation about what people are seeing in their fisheries and how it connects to their own experience. Willing that to facilitate discussion about what issues they are seeing and what solutions do the community see that could address them. But this is not just an idle chatter. These are deep and focused conversations where community comes together to agreements about what they want to do. These ideas turn into actions, and then they go to the LMMA Council and community leadership to get codified into legislation and regulations. So the importance of this feedback is like everybody has its key roles to link our pillars, which is community-based fisheries management and secure right. For example, in the communities, I've been working with community decided to focus on beach signs and have passed regulation to prohibit their use, and are using the combination of data and regulation to build understanding and awareness about why this is important. But the conversations haven't stopped there. It's now a space to connect the performance of fisheries with the habitats that fish depend on. The community is now recognizing ecological principles like nursery, grounds, and identifying places they want to protect. They have seen a lot of juvenile fish around their seaweed farms in shallow waters, and bring that knowledge to the discussion to talk about protecting shallow seagrass areas for juvenile fish. And they understand the connection between community-based management and the rights they need to be the stewards of these areas. So the data isn't just about the fish, it's connecting to their understanding of management and as well, and their responsibility and strengthening the links between community governance and government. And the conversation have also evolved to be about money and food. The data is eliminating issues around supply and demand pricing. When they cut a lot, the price goes down. And so they are now looking at how they can tackle that. And because of fisheries data includes all species, not just the commercial ones, they are now talking about how to ensure food supply and manage the species that they depend on for basic nutrition, and not just the ones they sell. So before we go talking about nutrition and foods, I'm going to pass the floor to my colleague Fatima. So Fatima, over to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Nestin. Hi, my name is Fatma. I'm based in Mombasa, Kenya. My focus in fisheries is looking at fish through a lens of community well-being. While I was preparing for this webinar, I was reminded of a time in my career journey when I wanted to become a nutritionist. Of course, that did not happen. But this work here, the work that I do, provides me the opportunity of linking fisheries to nutrition. And that really excites me. And that is what I will be sharing with you here today. Our socioeconomic data, specifically looking at what the nutrition data is telling us. This may come as surprising, but do you know that most people don't think enough about fish being food? That is evident seeing, for example, in local markets, how fish gets handled. Here in Kenya, it's a good example. Fish is the only animal product that gets auctioned along the road or gets hawked along the road. It's very common to see that. And then when you look at fisheries management and conservation, they have looked at fish through the lens of biodiversity and an economic one, but there's not enough information or nutritional information out there that talks about the nutritional contribution of fish to fisher households. And also in management, if you go deeper in management of fisheries, you find that focus has gone into managing commercially important species. So that is the conversation that we're trying to spark with communities about fisheries management, but also expanding the conversation to include nutritional needs of the communities. People may assume that fishing communities do eat fish, which is true, that communities do rely on fish. So, but is it to say that the same fish that ends up, or the same fish that ends up in external markets is the same fish that is eaten or is found in the fisher households? And while fish are known by governments and health agencies to be important for households' diets, especially for women and children, we've seen very little awareness raising and education that is targeting fishing communities, specifically prioritizing the importance of fish in local fisher households. Local fish consumption from small-scale fishers typically is missing. Information is missing specifically in conservation programs. It's missing in nutritional food system policies, and even in donor funding. This information is missing because we think of this as a very critical blind spot, because when you address the importance of fish the importance of nutritional value of fish to fisher communities, or when you improve the access of fish to fisher households, we may actually be tackling a missing piece, and that is malnutrition. So our work currently is our priority, which is focusing on our priorities, which is typically focusing on how this nutrition is important in local communities, or the well-being of local communities. We are currently using our socioeconomic data, that is the household survey tool. So this is a very simple a tool that is collecting information through a very simple app, which is linked to an automated dashboard. And through this tool, we're training partners who are working with communities on how to collect this information, which is very important for understanding the nutritional importance of fish. For example, when we're doing our trainings, or how does that work? How do we work with our partners? We train our partners on conducting or the approaches to take when sampling, when doing socioeconomic survey. We also train them on the ethical approaches that are used when conducting or when collecting this sort of information. So the surveys consistently show that the information that is there is new information, and we're actually using this information to spark conversations within communities. Yeah. So 5 out of the BV countries that have been associated to conduct this survey, of course, with the intent that this survey is going to be rolled out globally. And the work is already revealing very insightful messages, that the work or the information that we're collecting is a potential precursor to hidden hunger. Fishing communities may be getting enough protein and calories, but is there consistent, or is there enough information targeting or understanding the importance or the sources of micronutrients that are packed in fish? For example, iron, omega-3, and these type of micronutrients are present in the wild-caught fish. The surveys consistently show that fish is still the primary source of animal protein in coastal diets, yet few people are aware of its full nutritional value. We're also seeing a stark gender preference, whereby we're seeing some species are more preferred by one gender compared to another gender, and we're also seeing that there's a late introduction of fish to children without consideration that fish the nutritional value that children require for their general growth. So our initial findings provide a major opportunity. These feedbacks have become actually a very exciting part of what I do. For example, this slide here, right here, during our feedback sessions, it brought about, or it sparked a very insightful conversation within the community. I'd share a story, one story that came from one of the participants during our feedback session. We call them the Mama Karangas. We call them Mama Karangas because these are women that typically buy fish from small scale fishers, and they sell this, they prepare this fish, fry this fish, and sell it in the local markets in the evening. So when we were showing the most preferred species in the communities for consumption, it came out clearly that there's a difference between species that are preferred for consumption towards species that are sold. And most species, the species that are preferred for consumption are the small, low value species, like the demersal species, which are associated with low nutritional value, while the high nutritional value species like the pelagics, the mackerels, and the tunas are the ones that are highly sold for income. But this woman shared her story or her experience, her 25 years experience of cooking, of preparing fish and selling fish to communities, on how even though they're not able to eat the high nutritional value fish, but they're able to obtain very essential some parts from the fish, like the intestines. And she uses this, she boils this, and it provides a lot of oil that she can use it to fortify food for her children. Yeah. So what is our way forward? Moving forward, we're actually using the initial findings from our surveys to help us develop awareness campaigns and fisheries campaigns and education programs to local communities. Most of the species commonly consumed, even though they have relatively low in nutritional value, it's important that communities understand what are these nutritional values that are present. And it's important for communities, we are helping to support communities to strike a balance between fish that are sold for economic value and fish that provide nutritional values to our communities. And with that, I'll pass it over to Steve. Thank you.
Steve is on mute. Steve, you're on mute.
How frustrating. You just missed a phenomenal wrap up. But thank you, everyone. As we've heard from each of our speakers, and thanks to each of them, thinking about supporting communities for how we monitor and track the way communities are regenerating these critical systems, and using that data not just to develop and support these programs, but also that they can track their own progress, and that helps to inspire and motivate. And then on the fisheries production, it's not just production, it's the value and the nutrition that's coming from their fisheries. And as they're bringing management to bear through these locally managed marine areas, through community-based fisheries management, how they've got that feedback loop through these systems to see what's changing. And that sparks the conversations of what else they need to implement, what's working, what needs more attention. And again, this is not just linking information to fishers, but it's expanding those conversations across communities, and it forms a joint connection with other communities as we start to build out these networks of communities managing coastal waters. And then this new conversation around nutrition and helping to drive information around the nutritional value of the catch and how that links to management of not just the fish that are being sold, but the fish that people are eating. And as you've clearly heard, we have a strong belief that data lies at the core of solving this global challenge, even more so in the face of the climate emergency that is accelerating ocean degradation and placing these communities at ever increasing risk. And so being able to embed the culture of data collection, of data use, and of data for decision making, it helps communities adapt to a changing world. And I really hope you've enjoyed hearing about how we're supporting these communities all around the world to tap into their own information, to design and build lasting solutions that links to fisheries management, securing rights, understanding their economy, and balancing that economy with their food security. Suffice to say, we're very excited about data and what this is illuminating across the sector as a whole in an unprecedented way. As our speakers mentioned, this isn't just about one country or one community. This is a systemic lever that we're supporting across all the countries that BV works in. And the aim is to unlock that power for every community that we're connecting with and supporting every partner that's part of our partner network. And so now we've got some time for questions. So let's bring up the panel and we can take some questions from the chat. Please do add additional ones there as we're going along. And I think the first question, maybe to you, Courtney, is around the socioeconomic data at the end. And thank you, Fatma, for talking us through the nutritional side. But what additional data is being collected through that household survey?
Thanks, Steve. So we're collecting demographic data on fishing activity as well. So we're collecting data on how many people are fishing, who's fishing in the household, what they're fishing. We're also collecting data on types of gears. So we collect on fishing activity, we collect on income, sources of income, perception data around management effectiveness, trust in the community, and the food security, and as well the financial resilience. So understanding who makes decisions within the household on the finances, if the household is able to save money, if they have access to banks and loans. So all of this information is allowing us to evaluate the effects and impacts and outcomes of our program activities, and then also at the same time helping us plan and design those program activities, understanding the needs of the community.
Excellent. And maybe this goes to Nestin about how we're connecting the data to regulations and to enforcement. There's a question here around how do communities report illegal activities to authorities, but I think the question's maybe broader around how this is linking to management, which involves making the decisions, implementing those, and then the enforcement. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that, Nestin.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. About these questions, everything about enforcement. There's a system, local systems, which we called about local law, which is DINA. And through this DINA, there's a key person member who is responsible of applying this law enforcement. And once they track people who enforce the law, for example, in the seagrass, in coral reef, or in the mangrove, they spot these people and try to invite him to do a kind of meetings where they state, because these people is supposed to know the rule, but we just try to enforce it. And they try to gather in around like one room and try to discuss and give a kind of amendments as well if they know that if you enforce this type of rules, you have to pay this amount of money to cover these problems. Or another system is like if there is no local rules in this village, they treat this problem with the president of Pukutan or president of the villages. And if they can't decide directly, they call the local authority or regional authority to, as how to say that, arbitrary to judge the problems. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Nestin. And yeah, I think what you're saying is this is a process. It's having the information, it's developing the plans and linking that to local regulations, getting those adopted by the DINAR in this case, the raising of awareness around what those regulations are, but also having the consequence very clear. If there are these infractions, what the fines are, what the consequence. And I think a really key part of that is this is community led. These are consensual decisions that the community is making, and then you're building that cohesion and the responsibility of communities to manage. And with that, let's move on to another question around data deficiency. There was one in the chat here around considering that 40% of marine fish species are either data deficient or unevaluated. How does this data effort contribute to informing, either the IUCN Red List or other marine fish databases? And I'll open that up to maybe you, Courtney, on what's our approach here on linking up this wealth of information that's coming from communities and how they can drive that into global understanding.
Thanks, Steve, and thank you for the question. So our approach is centered around the communities and the fishers and the fish traders themselves. So we have designed the system and our program to collect data for their decision-making purposes. They own the data and they provide consent for its use. And one of those uses is, and that's been discussed in various different contexts, is really elevating that data and pushing it up, whether that is to provide information at the national government level, provincial level, and IUCN Red List would be another potential use of the data. So we are considering many options and uses of this valuable data, but at the core of it is the community, and their ownership is the most critical, and their use of the data to manage their fisheries is the ultimate purpose and the real driver behind what we're doing. And then using that information to then inform more broadly across regions and across globally ultimately. And the more data we have, the more we can share and really empower communities to drive that and lead that effort.
Yeah, amazing. And I think that's the real incredible opportunity now of being so focused on the community as the client, as the user of this system, and first addressing their needs. But as more and more communities start to link into that system, we are really illuminating just an incredible wealth of knowledge and information that I truly believe, and I think we all share this belief, will shift our global understanding in how important these fisheries are and address that data deficiency. But again, that that journey is being determined by the communities themselves, how they want their data to be collated and used. Now we have another question in the chat around the cost. In the presentations we explain these are free systems that BV is building for the use of communities. But maybe Nestin around the habitat monitoring or Ayrton on that one, and what's our cost model in terms of collecting this information? What are the cost drivers behind this?
Thank you for the questions. I think these questions, there is a lot of factors influencing the answer. I would say this cost will depend on the country, and also which area that the community, for example, decide to store and decide to do the ecological monitoring. For example, here in West Africa, we just started the ecological monitoring now. I cannot come with a specific value now for that per hectare, but some of the cost will depend on access. So if the site is nearby the community or the site is really far, we'll have to spend a lot on transportation for the monitoring. For us, also here in West Africa, one thing is the cost of some equipment. So they don't sell it here. For example, we have been looking for some GPS. So we have to import all these materials from Europe, for example. That increased the cost compared to the other countries. And also depends on the partner and the community. We don't have really a set, as I always call it, a setup like guidelines, how we will pay like the community or the members, but we always bring some benefits to the community. Some partners will decide, for example, all the community, they will join on the ecological monitoring, but then we will have this amount that will be used for the benefits of all the community. For example, can be like paint the school or restore the fisher house, for example. So this cost per hectare depends on the country and also from the community.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's really important. The context of the logistical context of how far these communities are from the habitats that they're trying to monitor. So the cost of mobilizing people, and I think I would kind of reframe this towards, we're really trying to drive value and understanding of this data. And as people start collecting it and start using it, the value of why they need to be investing their own time and energy in collecting it, in the monitoring, in the collection of fisheries data, or doing these community surveys. When you start that, the cost model may be different to once people actually start seeing the true value behind this, and then that becomes self-perpetuating. We've got time for maybe one or two additional questions. And so this data system, the three parts of it, the habitat monitoring, the socioeconomic survey, and the fisheries platform, is this being used across all communities that we're supporting? Is it available to all partners? And can other organizations use this system and platform? And maybe briefly from you, Courtney, on that one.
Thanks, Steve. So the answer is that yes, the data system is being used across all of the countries that we're working in. We are working to implement this system in all communities. Similar to Ayrton's response, it is contextualized, and each region and area comes with potential unique challenges. So it's obviously been a learning process to implement a new system at the community level. So we do have it rolled out in each country, and we are working towards each community. And it is open for other orgs to use. We did design the platforms to be data source friendly, and that we can integrate data either collected through our data collection tools that we've created, or connect up with data that's being collected in other ways by other organizations. So the systems are really built to facilitate collaboration and to use data collectively across regions, regardless of the organization that is collecting it. And we're supporting the partners and the organizations that we are working with to all use one collective data platform for that purpose, to elevate and really unlock the power of that data as a whole and facilitate that sharing process.
And maybe, and thank you for that. And yeah, I think this core philosophy that this is a tool for any groups that are interested in understanding what's happening across our coastal seas, and we're really positioning to be that enabling platform behind data for decision making in all its forms. And maybe just before we close, a question to our panelists overall: what most excites you about the path forward, where we're going with this data system, and what you're seeing from the communities and partners that you're working with? And maybe I'll start with Fatma to answer that one first, and then the others.
Yeah. So through my experience with working with different organizations that have worked with communities, I think I'm excited about this particular model that is being used by Blue Ventures, whereby data belongs to community. This is community data. So there's more ownership from the community to understand what the data is saying. And I've been working with local communities, especially in collecting data. The data is collected by communities, and we try and define what that data is saying with the communities. And when feedback is taken back to the communities, it's not taken by us, but it's taken by the community data collected. So this really excites me because it's creating more awareness, it's creating more ownership from the communities to understand their data and to protect their resources.
Thank you. And Nestin, what's your view on this?
Based on this question, Steve, I'm going to answer the question which is related to what is this? The question related to
what excites you about the future of this platform and the communities that you're working with?
I mean, it's really most exciting because now I started to appreciate how the community are more aware about key information from this data system and the way that they use it, because we started to live this cycle of adaptive management based on information, real information from their own key information, and it should be an entry point to improve the management measure and also the way that they're gonna keep sustainably the resources for future generation.
Thank you, Nestin. And Ayrton, do you have anything to add?
Yes, I would say, like, for example, for my experience from Cape Verde is, I would say we bring something completely new. Even when we start, it was really hard to build this trust with the community because of their past experience. Some organization, they come here, they collect the data, and they just left. They never go back to the community. So here we have to start again to rebuild the trust. And the thing is, the feedback that we get from them is really, for me personally, make me really happy. For example, in the
We seem to have lost your connection there. Oh.
have a really impact on the community, and we see they are motivating to collect the data. They trust on the data they collect, and they will make decisions based on this data.
Excellent, thank you. And I think for today, that's all we've got time for. I know there are a couple more questions in the chat. We can follow up in an email answering any additional questions. And please do email us if you have other questions about this data system and where it's going. And just to remind you, the next webinar, because this is part of a series as we look at each of these systemic levers that we're unblocking to empower communities to manage and protect their coastal seas. The next webinar will be announced soon, and we do hope you will join us for that too. And as we close, here's a second chance to see that short video that we opened with for those that may have joined late, that really does encapsulate this data journey and the communities we support. And let me just thank each of our panelists for joining today from around the world, and to each of you for spending the last hour with us to learn and get excited by data. Thank you so much.
Sasia zao ty olo laha mandeha anjiaka egny la tsy elaela avao laha mandeha maray midi favy la mameno laka zahay mihaka rao ty laka kelekele tsy andresy fa laka bevata sasia ty raha taloha ambonisy regny la mahazo ia hazo antsio anakasio regny sasia nja manaky zao vezo pihaky io zao no zao tsy manday avao raha ty refa lany kanefa tsy haiko ty fihenay raha zao iegny vo zao nilisy naniky raha io iaby nanike nanao tamberina anjaiky sy raha io zao do tena fahaiko iaby hoe tena mihena mare zao ty raha anjiaka egny
zahay taloha nampiasa kahie. Le olana amizay somary sarosarotsy avao ty fampiasagna an'izay kahie zay satria tegna raiky avao manao an'izay asa zay. De en plus izay amizay koa somary nisy olana kelikely satria le raha lae baka amy vokatsy lae baka amy mpianjiake seriky rozy fa ohatsy hoe toa atao ino avao asa naniky toa reheo ala aro amy ay nefa tsy hita ay ty marinamy tsy hay marina tena diky raha angala aro any raha toy.
Amizao koa raha reo iaby koa zao mahapasiaka anjozy io tsy nisy fagnampoliana totanisa amy mpianjiake tsy misy mipoly aminjozy. Tianto raha rimizay zao lafa zahay ro mandefa kahie regny magna minjozy agny la ty avie tsy mipoly amy atoy ty valy asa regny ka fara meloko mpianjiaka reo to ty anjozy.
Niova telefony zahay, telefony avolenta. De io telefony io amizay hita ay fa magnamora ty asa ay. De taloha zahay nampiasa raha vokatsy horitegna avao ty nala taloha fa amizao zahay kila vokatsy aby baka anjiaka egny ala ay amizao. En plus izay amizay koa I vokatsy nampasiaka ny mpianjiake ny takenjozy regny fa hazonjozy amizao isaky 3 vola zahay mampimpoly azy amy mpianjiaky reo. De magnaraka an'izay zahay mbo zahay avao koa tsy manaka ny kahie teo taloha nalefa agnabako tsy tapopoky igny fa zahay avao ro mandefa ny données regny lafa agnaty telefony ao de zahay avao ro mandefa azy de mampiasa connexion de moramora fimpoly raha regny baka amizay de ampoly amy ty fokon'olo anaova itatsy.
Mamory mpianjiaka reo zahay avory ay agnambara ay fimpolia vokatsinjozy regny lanjy ty vokatsinjozy regny fomba fiasanjozy abiaby zay raha niazonjozy regny amizay ro ambaranjozy sady amantaranjozy ty velomam-po ty raha anjiaka egny na mbo maro na fakely agnotonay amizay koa rozy hoe ino mba ty sosokevitsy areo nareo mpianjiaky io.
Ty fokon'olo sasa nanosokevitsy hoe magnino lera tsika laha manao reserva. De ty sasy koa mivola hoe magnino le tsika laha mamboly hongo. Ty sasy koa mivola hoe magnino le tsika laha manao miasa lavakorita zao koa. De ty sasy amizay koa manivola hoe anjay reto resaky fagnanova harata jaoto reto abane ka manimba vatohara. Ka tamireo sosokevitsinareo sofokon'olo amizay de fa nisy nitanterahy. Ananao zahay teo reserva, tsy maharitsy. Resaky harata jaoto regny amizao fa hoatsany fa tsy de hita. Manakan'izay koa resaky ino tike reserva Oriagna. Zay aby ty raha nitanterahy tamizay. Resaky fambolea zanakonko.
Zahay amizao zao la zahay ro la taratara zahay baka an-tanagna la ka ipianjiaka reo hoe ty enta ry telanjao areo